Okay, well, my name is Johnathan, Jimenez. I had my BFA at Oklahoma State University. Came here as a ceramics major, and then now moved over to sculpture. Started working on this work from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I traveled here to Lubbock. It's about a 6-hour drive. So a lot of my work, I tried to just base it off of past memories, things that we might go, unseen, and try to stay with materials that I'm comfortable with working with, or I'm familiar with, and try to romanticize them, and kind of pick these situations that we can kind of walk past and don't think about a lot. So starting with this piece, it's called Tumble. From the drive to Tulsa to Lubbock, if you've been in that area before, but there's a ranch down there called 4-6s, and big horse ranch. But they have these huge tall fences, and spending time in the car is kind of like I don't want to say like sacred, I guess, to me, but it's an uncomfortable spot for me. I'm not really comfortable with driving like long distance. And so this, just having that time to think, listen to your thoughts and stuff like that, I start to notice stuff that, it's just a simple drive, but that just goes past a simple drive. But at 4-6's ranch, they have these tall fences, so different type of animals and stuff don't get into the ranch, and tumbleweeds will just get stacked up onto the fence. So one day I pulled over, I saw this scene that I really wanted to capture in my head. I sat down with it for a little bit, did a sketch of it, took some pictures, and got to the studio, got these wooden bowls and started working with them, see how that I could distress them, work with them, and then getting the barbed wire in there. How can I, fix these up to make them look, to push that scene a little bit more is what I was going for. So in the studio time, I would take my time to just work out, like, how do I want this to be laid out? And something I enjoy about this piece is that every time I've shown it, it's changed every time. So yeah, it's just fun to play with every single time I put it into a gallery space. I had a show this summer with it. It changed. So it's going to be, a constant move. Just keep on working with it, seeing which composition I like the most, and then one day maybe solidify it in its one form. But dirt's just local dirt. Wanted to use Texas dirt just because of the 4-6 ranch. But yeah, so that's Tumble. And then here we have Glimpse. Showing up to Lubbock, I got to, got comfortable with the area. And one thing I noticed that was different from Tulsa to Lubbock is I saw a lot of plastic bags and trees. And we didn't have that a lot in Tulsa, but every time I take the trash out from my house, there's this plastic bag that's stuck in the street. And so I started dating it and noticing it. And as the time changed, we went through December to the summer. And then when I was in Elsewhere Studios this summer in Damon, Colorado, I came back and it was gone. But there's something stopped me. I had like a moment in my head that I don't know why, but I pictured it. And I sat there with it and talked to Cody about it. And Cody has noticed it, and I thought it was interesting that we can see these little moments that we stop and think about them and enjoy them. Yeah, so just still bar. Took the fan off of a fan that I had in my house. I just wanted it to be simple. I really like the mechanic part of it. I think it's something that really pushes the piece. I want to do more of my work in the future. I enjoy it. I enjoy making it. keep pushing it and then try to find out how far I can keep on going with this project. This is something that I think could really still really be a big part of my work in the future, so keep working with it, keep moving forward. And then I have a piece in the other gallery as well. But the two pieces, the one in the gallery and then this live one, just kind of came up with just studio time, just getting into the studio and making work. I think I made this piece took me probably 20 minutes, but it's just gathering material and seeing what I can come up with it. Been in the bar, getting an IV. I think Courtney met someone on the side of the road that had a bunch of I-beams, so luckily we've got a bunch of I-beams, and that's how this piece came apart. And the piece in the gallery is a furnace tube that was in the scrapyard. This is all part of the scrapyard at the sculpture area. So these two pieces don't formally have stories or anything to them or concepts, but just having fun in the studio, seeing what I can move around.
Johnathan, do these two pieces have something to say about the place you're in?
No, they mostly just talk about the overall moment that I'm capturing in.
So they're not critiques of the place, or commentaries.
No, not at all. But no, it's just the overall moment of capturing. I mean, most of my work, deals with railroad ties, stuff that does with family heritage, and so I want to keep that narrative and push those narratives even further, in the future. So this coming semester, I want to try to write poetry or anything for just every piece that I make, just so I can capture that feeling of how I'm feeling about the piece. I think it's important for my work, even if it's not shared, even if the writings aren't shared for it, but it's for myself. Just keep pushing that to really find out kind of what these pieces mean to me.
John, I've got an observation and a question. These two pieces kind of feel to me a little bit like photographs, because they sort of stop a moment that's usually kinetic. So the tumbleweeds are always moving, they're always blowing. They get there because they've been blown there. The bag is the same way. So I just wanted to observe that. I think we talked about that once before, but I just wanted to mention that again, because I think that's important in some way. And I wanted to ask you about materials. What's a material that would be unfamiliar or uncomfortable for you to use?
Good question.
Because you talked about using familiar, comfortable materials, and as artists, one of the things that we do is we pick uncomfortable things or difficult things and challenge ourselves to figure out how do we navigate that. So what would that be like for you?
That's a good question. I think I don't know if really the material's unfamiliar. Maybe I wouldn't know how to work best with, or how to capture these moments that I'm thinking of in a two-dimensional platform. I mean, in my undergrad I took painting classes and stuff like that, but yeah, I think painting, printmaking could probably be an uncomfortable spot to try to make myself think of how to capture these moments in that area. I mean, I think it would just push this boundary of having a solidified form in front of me in a three-dimensional space, then onto a canvas or a paper. Yeah, I mean, raw material, plastics or anything like that, I think I could work with. It's a good question.
Thank you.
I would extend that question about materials. When you decide, I'm going to use found objects in a second, when you decide I'm going to fabricate out of some it's still found metals, you scavenge those supplies instead of buying some pristine supplies. So how do you make that decision?
I think it's really just a studio process. I mean, just collecting stuff constantly And then when you're in there, especially having these deadlines of critiques and stuff like that, I really enjoy it. But just finding, you know, I like to be really organized with my studio space as well. So having these materials set aside and knowing that I always have them in my back pocket. If I need something like the barbed wire, I just like Facebook Market. I need barbed wire right now. I like good barbed wire. Let me go get it. Drove, you know, an hour out of town to go get some barbed wire real quick because I knew that I could use it for many other pieces. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really important in my work. I want the raw material to be there always in my work and have this kind of rustic feel to it. A lot of people ask me about color in my work as well, but I think that's something that I don't formally want to be there because the material is so raw that it's been sitting there and it's been out and it has its own story already, like the what did and tumbleweeds do. Just picking those materials off the side of the road and stopping. All that's super important. So to me, just that they've been here and they've lived before.
So there's not a big differences between your found materials and something that is more industrial.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll use anything if it comes up, if I'm sketching, and it comes up, I'll use it. But I like the material to be aged or kind of lived. I don't usually like go out and buy. I bought the barbed wire from the cattle rancher about an hour out of town. But yeah, so I like the stories to the materials and how much they've seen.
I think that's a really exciting question, is about the choice and when to simulate or replicate something and when to use like the genuine artifact. I just want to go back quickly to a word that keeps coming up. You use the word capture a lot, and Bob's using that word, I think, really astutely to talk about these as photographs in space. These are also like literal events of capture, like something has been captured, like detained either in the barbed wire or in the branches of the tree. Both of these things seem to represent moments where something has sort of been trapped, I guess, in a structure that maybe wouldn't otherwise. Here's an organic plant from the ground that's gotten trapped in this barbed wire that was put there by a person, and then here's a manufactured object, a plastic bag that's getting trapped in something that represents the organic, arms of a tree. Can you talk about tension in your work and the detention of something? In a place that it feels like it should, that we're seeing something where it shouldn't be, or something that's been stopped in its path when it shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's what something I look forward to pushing in the coming semesters as well is putting these moments inside a gallery space, especially with the dirt or the railroad ties that are in my work as well. And then, having these moments in a gallery space and changing that. I want to build an environment to inside a gallery space. So the show this summer, and heard it while this piece has been in here, but having that moment of someone maybe for the first time seeing tumbleweed for the first time, but I'm bringing that into a gallery space for someone to see it, or someone to be comfortable with seeing it. Where I grew up from, all my buddies are country boys and stuff like that, but I want to have that. I want them to be comfortable to be able to come into a gallery space and feel like you can show up with your boots and dirt on you and stuff like that. So bringing that into a gallery space and pushing the moment for galleries and having people be able to come into a gallery space and be comfortable. I think that's tension in itself as well. So yeah, I want to keep pushing it and see how further I can take it. Every single moment that I'm capturing in my brain is just, moments of solitude or times that I'm really stressed, as I mentioned, like car rides or anything like that. All that's like built into all these pieces. So when I'm thinking about them, they're just being stuck in my head the whole time. And I remember seeing that, like seeing the plastic bag and the branch or the tumbleweeds, and they don't stop moving in my head. I'm always like working with them, or and I'm thinking to myself, why do I keep thinking of that? Why do I keep thinking of that tumbleweed and that fence? Why is that still stuck in my head? All right, let's make a piece about it. Let's make a piece about that plastic bag. Why is it so weird to me? Why am I so attracted to it? You know, why aren't more people talking about it? How much more can I find out about it? And, you know, letting viewers think about that in a gallery space is really important to me. And how do you think about it inside a gallery space for yourself? You know, what does this piece mean to you? Because when I think about it, I was probably freaking out and anxiety in my car driving, you know, the 7-hour, 6-hour drive. I love it, but it's stuck with me. Yeah, good question. I think it's something I don't know. The tension is a big word for my work. I mean, I always want to have tension in my work, and it can come from tension of weight or tension of the conversations that the piece can have. Good question. Thank you.
I wanted to, sorry, did I? Okay.
No, just
Something that's really interesting in your work, and like you talking about the materials that you choose, and like I think we're keep coming back into this, but the idea of liminality, like these are always in between things, and so like these, when you collect materials, you're also looking at like the fact that they're not done, like they're in a circle, they keep going, and so like, and by even like the liminality of the spaces, like bringing it into a gallery space, like, oh, there's liminality there, it can become something else, and after I'm gone, it will become even something else. And so like there's just something interesting in seeing how, and it's also like you just talking about these moments, they get stuck in your head and you pull them out and you give them that space to be in a liminal space of like always becoming something else or always shifting and transitioning. And if we think about a tumbleweed itself, it's always in a state of motion, same thing with that bag. And so I think there's a nice tie to liminality that comes up in your work, and I just wanted to see if you had thought about that before, about this sort of continuation of the fact that they're always moving.
Yeah, I think for sure. I push that in my writings a little bit more. When I write about these pieces, I push that and try to think about that a lot, and how much all these forms like fit with each other. They're all like a passage of time, and when you really think about it, all these materials that I'm using, everything that I use, from the railroad ties. My grandfather worked with the railroad ties. So now I'm working with them with my hands. How can I,
continue
distress these materials? How do I work with these materials? These tumbleweeds passing by when you're driving. Why am I thinking about that? How is it getting captured? And then bringing them into this still moment and capturing these moments. I mean, it's really important to me that I have those moments. But then I'm thinking about how can I keep finding these? How can I keep finding these? Little moments. Do I search for them, or do I just let them come to me like the tumbleweed or the plastic bag? And so that's what I'm finding out now with my studio process is, can I start making these moments? Do I start leaving stuff out in nature, or do I start making these moments? Do I start putting plastic bags somewhere and doing something with them to see how they change, or do I start working with tumbleweeds? Am I putting tumbleweeds outside and seeing how they work with each other, or am I just letting all this information build to me and like set it to myself? Am I walking down the road and finding, a little pebble on the street, taking a picture of that and then making it in the studio? How do I make the difference of, finding these moments like I did with these two pieces, or making the moments like I'm doing with the railroad ties? But I think it's like a constant chain of events. I don't think I'll ever find the in-between of finding moments and creating moments for myself.
In a way, too, you said that making things two-dimensional would be one of the harder things for you. That in a way, you're taking two-dimensional scenes and making them three-dimensional. Because when you drive and you glance at things out the window, they're very flat. And you don't see them dimensionally because you're not walking around them. And I love the way, I feel like if this had been a photograph, that you're making this something that I can now actually walk into and experience. I think that's really true.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, that's going to be really great. Well, I don't know if it's going to be great, but so great questions. Thanks so much for sharing insights about where things come from. And I feel a little bit like I want you to resist a little bit more when a question comes along, or when somebody says something. You seem like very willing to go that way. And so I want to use that to talk about like how you relate to work. Maybe that issue of resistance is something to think about and talk about. Or like, how do these resist? I mean, like, why was it okay to put brand new barbed wire in with these posts that have been out there in the world? Like, you talked about time in a really important way, but then I'm not really like kind of getting the rules of like how you combine things.
Really good question. Yeah, I don't know. I think really just the studio time, like having like the critiques and stuff to me. I mean, can decide those things, or just having the material at hand as well. I mean, what material do I have right now? What can I use to build these pieces?
So like living with it?
Yeah, living with it for sure. I mean, yeah, if I have barbed wire that's been set with me and aged with me like this barbed wire is doing now in my studio. I've lived with this barbed wire. Now the whole barbed wire is different now in my studio than it was when I first got this piece and was starting to make this piece. But yeah, I think just living with the material, finding ways that I can distress the material as well, like the wooden stakes and stuff like that. I mean, it's gonna push the piece further each time I do it. But how can I always rework the material as well? Is going to be important. I don't know if I answered that question.
Yeah, you did. I think I keep thinking about that issue of resistance. It's like every medium we work with, I think we try to figure out like how is it that it defines it.
Okay.
Then we end up negotiating some ways. I don't think it's about dominating that medium. It's more about like really understanding.
Okay. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.